All I did was ask.
Welcome to the Board of Health meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic, and nation under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Thank you all for coming. We're going to start with, because of some time scheduled, the Board of Health, we have an advisory committee that we're setting up. And so I'd like to start with the Board of Health Advisory Committee update. And last time we didn't happen to have the chairman here, but today we have him. So I'd like to welcome Dennis Ott to the stand there. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
We're working on a committee to a policy review committee that was established a while back. We're still trying to figure out how everything's going to work. And so it's still in the building phases. There is I handed out what I'm calling a mission statement. That's just a place to start off. And if people like it or don't like it, I'd be happy to hear back comments. Probably via email is best for that. But this is just a starting point. The lawyers have seen it and they want to do a few changes, I think. But it's just a starting point. So if anybody has any comments or changes or suggestions, please feel free to send me an email or bring it up today. And then I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. The mission statement is completely a work in progress. I look forward to and welcome any suggestions or corrections. The idea behind it is that the committee is a completely advisory adjunct to you. You are the ones that do all of the legislation. You are the ones that do all of the regulations. We do not. You give us directions on what you want researched. We'll do what we can to give you assistance. That is the basis and the purposes that I understand. So I look forward to feedback on that, and I look forward to all of it from all of you. The definitional sections of the Washington codes have not been taken seriously into consideration. When I say seriously, I mean heavily into consideration. So there are language changes that I would welcome. With regard to the committee itself, I'm looking at a committee of 3 other individuals other than myself. Those committee members will serve. And there is a secondary list that's also made, and that would be a list of alternatives. In short, substitutes, people who want to serve. Like you, there's a committee of people in this community that are interested in assisting and helping. So I'm compiling that list. I'm going to have it go through you, Mr. Lane, so that they will be accessible to everybody else as well. People unable to continue to serve, we will have the opportunity to have substitutes pulled immediately. Also, anybody that's on that list is a resource for, at least I would hope, that we would be able to call upon from the committee and ask them, can you give us some help? And they're not going to be members of the committee per se, but at least they would be available to help. So that is what we're looking at right now. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you for that update and report. Appreciate that.
All right. You guys got a lot of work to do tonight. Thank you.
So Mr. Chairman, if I may, Dennis, I appreciate your willingness to spend a lot of time, effort and energy. And I appreciate your comments about additional committee members. What I'm not quite sure is, are you interested in a committee that is made up of a diversity of views? Because this committee so
I'm
far,
having-
this
I'm
board
having-
so far.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm
Okay,
very
sorry. Is that better? I have to tell people to get closer to the mic all the time. I'm sorry. Okay, so I appreciate your willingness to serve on the committee, and I appreciated your comments about having additional members. My question is, do you anticipate a diversity of opinion on your committee? Because already at our Board of Health meetings, we have had some contentious discussions, which is fine, but if we have an advisory committee, shouldn't we be looking for a diversity of opinions?
The answer to that question is yes. Come up
Mhm.
with a straight across answer. The answer is yes. In fact, there's going to be men, women on this particular committee. That's not going to be the issue. Any reports, it would be my impression that any reports that are going to come are going to have dissenting opinions also attached to them. So I am expecting that to be a well-researched piece of work that's going to come with dissents as well. So I appreciate your question, and I look forward to the opportunity to making sure that that happens.
Sure. Okay.
That will happen.
And with 3 other members, there's a committee of 4, so we don't have to worry about the tyranny of a majority. You'll figure it out. You'll work it out.
We will. And I'm going to apologize again because I'm having a terrible time hearing you.
Sorry.
And I would say that the committee meetings, board members should be able to come and take a look.
Absolutely. Welcome it.
Okay.
You mean another meeting we get to go to?
Sure.
Yes.
I think you just need to be careful. If you get all of us there, then it becomes open public meeting. There's different rules.
As long as it's not a quorum. You're right.
Yeah.
Good point.
So is there a schedule of the future meetings somewhere? Is it put together or is it flying by the seat of your pants or?
We're still waiting for some people. I've heard a few people have just got one today, came into my email, so
Mhm.
not set. Okay, well, with that,
Thank you.
thank you very
you.
much, Dennis. I'd like to move to the what I'm calling, I guess, old business, would be the RV parks, campground and sanitation codes. We'd like to move into that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had more questions about the advisory committee, if that's all right.
Oh, if maybe you guys could talk, because I knew you wanted to talk with him.
Well, they're questions for the whole board.
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really interested in participating in the advisory committee, and I know that you suggested I meet with the chairman. Happy to do that. I guess I'm just used to a little bit more clarity for public committees about how people can participate and when those will be held. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, is there an intent for this committee to have some sort of regular meeting structure, or is it purely ad hoc? What, I'm just looking for a little more
No,
information.
once it's formed, I'm sure we're gonna have some meetings, once we're able to figure out who will be on it and the availability of their schedules.
Okay, so it's still really a work in progress. It
It's
sounds.
definitely a work
okay.
in progress.
Okay. And will the county be able to post information for other people besides myself that may be interested as that?
For sure, there's actually a place on the HHS website for committee reports, so there will be.
Okay. Great, thanks. Just looking for more clarity about the process. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And that brings that question to my mind. And so is it the chair who's going to make the decisions about who participates or who's invited to be on the advisory committee? Is that your decision, Kelly?
No, not my decision. No, I would
I mean,
think,
is it going to be a consensus with the Board of Health? Are we going to decide as a group or will Mr. Ott decide or you decide or?
Well, there hasn't been a lot of interest yet, and to be frank, I invited you specifically to join the committee and you
Right.
said no, so.
Right. But that wasn't my question. My question is, who makes the decisions about who serves on the committee?
I guess the chairman would be able to have the final say. So now moving on to the next item then. So that's it for that. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is the RV parks and campground sanitation codes. This is a discussion from the last meeting. It's quite a lot of work that you guys have done. I want to thank you, Susan and Gina and Carol for all the work already. And it's going to take a little bit more kind of pushing through these.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to do this. We did have a comment on chat asking if and where the proposed mission statement would be available to members of the public. And
I would
I
say-
meant to answer him and I deleted him. So
Okay.
could you explain how people can get a copy of this?
Again, that is in the, they can get a copy from the clerk, actually, but that is not the final
Right.
version. There's going to be changes, so I wouldn't even attempt to get one yet, since it's going to have lots of changes.
My feeling is it is a rough draft. It's just the beginning stages. And this really is just starting. And we're kind of new at this, I guess you might say. So we're working on the process. And so we're going to try to, as a group and as a community, you can help us too, organize it. But it is just a mission statement that's a rough draft to start.
Very
we-
rough.
We're going to really, work on it and probably make it shorter and very specific and useful for the community so they understand what it says.
So are you on it?
Well, I've been invited
Mhm.
on it.
Hmm.
Is that a problem? Oh.
Actually, the entire board has been invited several times. Replay the tapes. You'll see me offering many times. So
So what I'm hearing is this moves along that the clerk will have access to it? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
So I think, is that the answer we're being asked, that if they want a copy of it as it works along, the clerk of the board would have that available?
yep.
I hope so.
And I look for, like I said, from in the beginning, if you see something on there that you don't like, Commissioner, please let me know. Okay, now I think we're ready to go to the next one. Okay, go ahead, Gina. Thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you. Gina James, Health and Human Services. I apologize, my voice is cracking today, so bear with me. We are back to discuss the general sanitation requirements for Cowlitz County Campgrounds Code. I provided some slides that just go through each section of the code and what the changes are. What you'll notice, there's kind of a theme, and the reason why the red line version was really difficult to look at. A lot of the code, it's separating the building and planning components from the health components. And so a lot of the code revisions were around doing that. And then there was some grammatical changes, updating code references and things like that. As well as just emphasizing some more of the health components, which were maybe not part of the original building and planning focused code. So that's sort of the theme with the changes, with the draft that we provided. It is an update from last week. There were a couple changes and we've posted those updates on our website as well. What we're hoping to do is kind of see if there are areas of concern that the board has that they want to discuss. We can go through each section and review the changes that were made to each section and do that. But I want to just kind of touch base with the board too and see if if you've had time to review it, if you're comfortable with most of the code, but have questions on just a few pieces, we could maybe just focus on those pieces. But we're prepared to go through each section and review the changes to the code as well.
And when you say each section, are you talking from where it started 2 years ago? or where it was 2 weeks ago?
The existing code as it's currently adopted to the changes to the new code, that is the health side. There's also a building and planning side, and they have their own code they're working on. We do have a representative from building and planning here if there are questions around their components.
I would say, I have read pretty much most of it, maybe not every single word, but I have reviewed it. And I only have one issue with the one section that we discussed before, which is the exemptions. And I see that it has been changed just slightly. And so it used to have 4 exemptions. Now I see it has 5 exemptions. And that looks to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just you split construction campgrounds and temporary campgrounds into 2 different points. So that's pretty clear. So I would say my comments are that the A, B, C, D are all pretty clear to me. Construction campgrounds, temporary campgrounds, RV parks, excuse me, not RV parks, RV storage areas don't need to have any kind of compliance with health codes. Well, some, but not this code. The one that I take exception with is the designated homeless sites sanctioned by state or local officials for housing of transient persons following the review and exemption by the health official. That one just doesn't make much sense to me. I understand Doug had some input in it. I don't know, is Doug Jensen online or Jennings? Not sure, but that's the one part that
Mhm.
sticks out to me. A designated homeless site sanctioned by a state or local officials. I would think that anything that's sanctioned by the state or local officials should comply with the code, just like everybody else. So that
Yeah.
one exemption, in my view, should be taken out. And the lawyer has said it could be taken out. He also stated it was somewhat confusing. I see it's been changed a little bit, but it's still basically saying a homeless site sanctioned by the state or local officials is exempt from the code. And that doesn't make sense to me.
You know, and if I could just speak for a minute, I'm not an expert, but it seems like it's allowing the same kind of thing as the original Camp Alabama, not the pallet homes. But it sounds like it would be another Camp Alabama without the the regulations for sewer, water, fire protection, any of those parts that Camp Alabama demonstrated. It sounds like this is the same thing. Am I confused about what I'm reading on D?
My understanding, and I'll let Susan jump in, my understanding is, whether this language is in this code or not is up to the board. I don't think it changes the authority of the health officer.
Correct.
And this particular code is addressing campgrounds as they're defined in the code. Did you want to add?
It says homeless.
No, I think that's a great point, Gina. This is for recreational campgrounds, so a different type of campground setting. But yeah, the health officer would still have authority over
Yeah,
designated
and
campsites.
and from what I've read, the health officer has had authority for years and years, still has authority, and by removing this line would not change his authority at all. He'd still have authority, and it would be less confusion. Furthermore, I would say too, that if the health officer has to make a determination if the homeless camp is exempt or not, I would see theoretically, if he exempts one camp, what about all the others? And this could be a long process for the health officer to go around and find all these homeless camps and make a determination if they're exempt or not. I don't know that the health officer should be used for that.
Well, I'm concerned too about the designated homeless camp that's sanctioned. How will it be sanctioned if it's not following the regulations? I'm just confused about the description is all. Just,
But that's a good point too.
Yes, it says sanctioned by state or local officials. And I think, to use your example of the Alabama camp, that site was sort of sanctioned by the city. I know Doug had mentioned some part of his consideration for adding the language in was around the Martin versus Boise decision and whatnot. But again, for this particular code, I think he added it in for additional information, but it doesn't necessarily change the authority of the health officer. And I just want to point out too, the health officer is online virtually if we have specific questions for the health officer.
Okay.
So
Do-
if the board wants to take that, strike that language, we could certainly do that or leave it in. It's up to you.
In order to strike that, that would require a motion, Commissioner Weber, to strike some of the language?
Sure.
It would.
So if I might, the one thing that he makes it clear that it's both, including that language is both factually and legally accurate. And I'm not an attorney and I don't pretend to be an attorney. And this is, it's a bit convoluted, but I guess I tend to want to rely on people who understand regulations and codes and laws more than I do. So I think that that's an important sentence. And the other piece, the other point that he makes that I think is critical is that it adds transparency to the code. And speaking just for myself, I think transparency in the code to help both staff and the public is critical. And everything that, it feels like everything that we can do to improve transparency and make the code easier for the public and the staff to understand, that's something worth considering to continue to include in the document.
One of the questions that keeps running through my head is how we resolve a couple of different conflicts. We have case law, the judiciary that says, whatever we do with regards to the homeless, we can't create regulations that make it illegal to be homeless. And my understanding was, Doug said this is one of the ways around that. I'm still not very clear about it. But the other thing is, no homeless camps starts off in violation of anything, but it always ends up being a garbage heap, just a filthy, a garbage strewn mess. And we've paid a lot of money, the county has and the city has, in disposal fees on sites that have occurred. And I guess we can quibble about definitions, but I'd like some explanation of how we began policing up those sites that get out of control. And, otherwise it's all kind of useless. And I don't know if Steve, if you've got an idea on what kind of language we need to have to make sure these sites get cleaned up when they get out of control. Because oftentimes they're on private property, which is kind of beyond the scope of this document, because this is where, I guess it is. I guess it would be for RV parks and trailer parks in private campgrounds.
Well, but
Anyway,
even if
I want to make sure what happened at Alabama and in the woods up by West Side Highway and out on 33rd. We don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And so maybe the question is, Steve, what do you need to help that from not occurring again?
Who's the Steve?
Commissioner
Steve
Weber, are you
Krager.
addressing me?
Oh, Dr. Krager. There we go. Thank
Hi,
you.
this is, Dr. Steve Krager, the Deputy Health Officer. Commissioner Weber, it's a great point. And I've struggled with this a little bit too, because I think about obviously I don't want people living in conditions that are unhealthy, whether that's camping or in a, apartment that has mold or is dangerous in some other way. But the question is where do we intervene? And I don't have a good answer. From my standpoint, I view it more as a public health issue, being that if it's affecting the surrounding community, it starts to become under public health's kind of realm. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but to me, it's we do have nuisance kind of ordinances. We have, solid waste ordinances that I think we can enforce in instances where it's not necessarily a public health risk, but it's still, something that could be enforced another way. So that's kind of my my preference, but I'd be happy to have like further discussions about, yeah, I mean, how can we prevent kind of people from getting to that point in the first place, especially from a health standpoint?
Well, and I wonder also about, there's no limit or timeline on their stay. They can just be there permanently, apparently. It's not limited to 2 weeks like you would a camping ordinance or something. And it just seems like it's an open-ended, come and do, no sewer, no water, just come and be here. And unless you become a horrible mess, we're going to leave you alone. Is that kind of how it sits then? That they can come without regulations, no water, sewer, as most people would have to have. They won't have to have that. And then there's no limitation on how long they can be in that place. I just wondered.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can address all of those questions, but this code would not regulate those sites. So I think that's kind of the main theme here, is that this is a recreational camping code. It's not meant to regulate those type of situations.
But it's homeless. It's very specific to
They
designated.
become campgrounds.
Yes.
I'm confused.
And I feel like potentially maybe there could be another code or another policy that could address those situations, and maybe this is not the appropriate place.
I think
For
that
this.
I
what you
agree.
just said, it seems, the more we talk about it, it seems like if we're going to start talking about homeless camps, there may be a separate code for
Yeah.
homeless sites. Because the regular RCW, the health officer's powers and duties, which is 70.5.070, will clear up any kind of homeless nuisance. On point number 5, it says the health officer has the authority to prevent, control, or abate nuisances which are detrimental to the public health. That covers the whole county, even on private property at that point.
Mhm.
So I would think that it's probably not best in this RV campground code.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that we remove it. I don't know.
Trying to understand this. So, and I'm kind of trying to echo or understand what Susan said, is that this code is not designed to address homeless camps. This code is designed to address RV campgrounds.
Right,
We're
but
going through
with,
the committee process.
but if it passed this way, this code will exempt homeless. camps.
Designated homeless
But
camps.
that's my point, because and I tend to agree with you that
Oh.
there needs to be maybe, and I know that you guys are trying to streamline and make everything more simple, but maybe there needs to be a separate document that specifically addresses illegal or homeless camps that are not licensed, regulated RV camps.
Well, that would, that would.
They're two different animals.
I agree.
Sure, and that would go
completely.
to the health officer at that point. The health, if there is one of those, instance where there's a dirty camp, at that point, the health officer has the full power to fix it.
Yep.
Already in existence.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow you here, but.
Well,
Of course, then we get into the dilemma. If we have a code for homeless camps, then we're prescribing all the different homeless camps that show up.
I know, I
And, you know,
agree. I agree.
I'm not sure we want to go there.
No,
That's gonna be even worse. And if I understand what Doug was trying to do is to not do a separate code for homeless camps. Because we're not trying to legalize homeless camps. We're trying to, you know, minimize them. And it is a dilemma.
Yeah,
I'm-
we have statute and law that, you know, we can use to take care of that. City of Longview chose not to use them. I mean, it was pretty simple. It's not that there wasn't law in the way. Don't mean to pick your waiver, but somebody's asking why you're not on the screen.
Oh, I don't know. It's because I
So-
didn't put myself on
sorry.
video. Sorry about
You're
that.
right.
The thoughts on this, you know, sometimes if you list something and people read through it, they'll say, oh, okay, this is okay to do this.
Yeah.
So I would take it out just for that. It's still going to be reviewed. Anything that happens, it looks like it's reviewed by the health officer and done. And I would just prefer to leave it at that instead of listing it in there. I don't want it to be construed that, yeah, oh yeah, it's okay for us to do this. It's right here. I can see it. Because they're not going to read through the whole intent or understand the whole intent like an attorney would and explain it to us. So for that simple reason, I'd leave it out. It's still, if you have it forming, our health officer still has the charge to take a look at it and do some work with it from there.
So if the chair accepts that as a motion, I'll second it.
I do accept that as an emotions, and thank you for the second. So the motion on the floor is to remove the E exemption line, 124 is what I'm seeing.
I'd like to comment before you call for the question.
Hold on a second. I'll open it first. So the motion on the floor is to remove this one part of the exemption from the code. And it was seconded by Weber. So now,
So I will go back to my initial comment is that or a couple of comments is I have confidence in the attorney that they know more than I do. And they suggest that we leave that language in here. And B is that it adds to the transparency of the document, and people give a lot of lip service to, we want to be transparent. We want government transparent. And here's an opportunity to include it, keep it in there to improve transparency. And so for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion.
So I was with you and except we did get a notice from our attorney. It said, it's up to us.
Yeah.
It could be in. It's in or out. Is it more transparent or it's less? I think the discussion we've had makes it pretty obvious. It's not, it's confusing.
yep,
And we can get a lot, and we can accomplish our goal without it. And if we, so.
and the transparency is already there in the existing
RCW.
health
Yeah.
officers' duties and powers. We have somebody from the public would like to speak? Please.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to echo that, being that the entire, section isn't about homeless, it seems very weird when it's, they've said a few times that the entire section's about, RV and camping sites. It seems kind of, like kind of tacked on, like, I could see in some way that could maybe, empower a city to create a homeless RV camp easier, using that as an excuse. So for me, if it's like, the section's about specifically recreational camping, it has no place in there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any further discussion on the motion at hand? So the motion again is to remove that one exemption, which is letter E right now, from that code. 115.45.050. So we'll put it up for a vote. All in favor of removing that code, say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? So the motion carries. And I think it's still going to need some other discussion later, and it has to go through it for a public hearing as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping to hear if there are other sections that the board has particular concerns or questions on. We're happy to go through each individual section and talk about what the changes to the code were. But I sort of, I want to just touch base if there aren't any sort of hot items that the board has issues with in terms of the rest of the code. If you felt like you've had time to read through the rest, we could continue down this process. Or as I mentioned, we can sit through here tonight and go through each section and talk about those changes and have discussion.
I don't have anything major, Gina. When I came over and chatted with you two about it, I did ask, because everything I look through, it always seems once you hit 3, then everything changes, right? So I asked you, how come it changes at 3? Why didn't it change at 5? Or why didn't it change at that? Just trying to loosen up restrictions a little bit. So we can do a temporary camp, or they can do a campground with 2 units, but once they hit the 3 units, then all kinds of other things apply. And I think the explanation I got had to do with water availability.
I'm gonna let you.
So a little bit behind the thought process for why we decided to land on 2 versus another number. There is a water component, which I will get to, but the main reason we decided on 1 or 2, which it landed on 2, was we wanted people to have the ability to help out friends and family in need. We know there's a housing crisis. We know that housing is tight. We didn't want to make it, illegal for someone to have their friends or family come and stay on their property, while they're figuring out their housing situation. So it was more of that vein of trying to, allow people to help their neighbors and families. The problem is once you get over, two, I would say, once you have 3 RVs on site or campground sites, you have a lot more people, you have a lot more trash, you have a lot more septic issues potentially. So that's kind of how we landed on that. It's something that we discussed with the Building and Planning Department,
Yeah.
and they felt that that was a reasonable number. It certainly can change with 3 connections. If you have 2 RV sites and then a primary residence, once you hit that 3rd connection, you fall into public water, and there are a lot more requirements when it comes to 3 connections versus just 2 connections. So that is.
Yeah.
definitely,
It's not something I'm gonna hold your policy up on because it's pervasive throughout other things. If you do a private road and you get the 3rd house on a private road, then all of a sudden you're talking sidewalks and other nonsense, and I just think we need to back off some of that stuff and help people out a little better, but it's more, I guess I'm just more making a point than worried about your code change. I think what you got now is good with me.
And I haven't found many other things except for one little thing that maybe just a question or clarification. Under 18.56.050, also exemptions, under B, it says day use areas provided, however, that appropriate sanitary facilities are provided as may be required by the health official. I'm wondering, required, shouldn't that be the Board of Health? I'm wondering.
118, line 118.
Yeah, it's day use areas provided, however, that appropriate sanitary facilities are provided as may be required by the health official. And I'm just wondering if it should actually be by the Board of Health codes or by the code? Or is that okay? I mean, I don't know that the health officer is going to be able to, require certain things. I think it would probably come from the Board of Health.
Well,
I'm
I mean, a
asking.
lot of the authority of this code is derived from the health officer and his authority. So we really do rely on that to
He may,
enforce the code.
he may see the area and say, oh, we can do this versus another area may not do that. To stay away from making another law, I'd probably live with that.
Yeah, I can live with it too. It's just like more of a clarification. So if that, I think that's the only major concerns about these codes. I think we dealt with it.
Okay. So in terms of next steps, we've talked a little bit about this last time. We would like to, we're happy to have further discussion if there's additional concerns. We'd like to have the Board of Health approve the draft code. And then what will happen is we'll schedule a public hearing with the Board of County Commissioners. That has to happen in alignment with Building and Planning. Their code is ready to go as well. And so it will be, and it has to sort of happen at the same time because repealing the old code eliminates both the Building and Planning and the health standards. And so we need them to happen at the same time. So that's sort of our next step, is getting Board of Health approval on the draft and then scheduling a public hearing with the Board of County Commissioners.
If you can get us the revised draft after today's motion and any other changes you guys made, I'll make sure to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. That's April 25th. Is that going to be enough?
25th. Okay, yeah.
Are members not comfortable making a motion to approve, including the changes that were made?
Yeah,
tonight?
we could approve the amended draft
Mhm.
tonight, couldn't we?
That'd be my guess.
You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, I'd move to approve the amended draft for general sanitation requirements for Callis County campgrounds, chapter 15-45, with the exception made earlier.
I have a second.
just to clarity, this is not a final recommendation to the three of us, or is this the
No.
final recommendation?
She,
Just
the way
referring
she
to-
explained it, she needed this done by the Board of Health before they can bring it to the commissioners.
For the rest of the
Yeah.
building and planning
Yeah,
requirements.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you want to second that, Commissioner Weber?
Sure.
I just, because I saw your finger up.
I suppose it is odd if a majority of the board approves it in this board.
Yeah.
That is a little bit awkward.
I don't make the process.
That's right. No, the state in their infinite wisdom made that process.
So the motion on the table is, or on the floor is to approve the amended version that we just amended 15 minutes ago, and everything else will stay the same. All in favor of, oh, sorry, let's discuss it a little bit.
I'm just little, I was hiding over here. I was just curious about the 2 RV limit at private residence. Did that used to be 1 RV and it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it used to be one
Oh.
RV.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Cause I think that's really, I have a lot of people I know of that would benefit from that. So that's excellent. Thank you.
From what I've heard, that the staff has already talked to a lot of RV park owners, and this is a result of that.
Well, that'll give, a little more leeway too for just private property owners and people with, RV hookups at their house. So,
I'm being facetious here, but we're trying to get them off our roads.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so any further comments or discussion on that, on this motion? So all in favor of passing this motion, say aye.
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 I believe that's unanimous. Okay, thank you for that. Next item of business is basically just kind of a talk, and I think maybe Commissioner Weber, you can maybe help us out, because I think you would, I'm hoping you know the most about this, is that I know that there's a mental health tax that's expiring in 2024, and I had not heard of that until recently. Can you just kind of tell us a little bit about how that works?
Yes, it's actually, it's been mischaracterized as long as it's been in law as a mental health tax. It's a behavioral health tax. So that allows us also to address substance use disorders. The state legislature gave counties the option of increasing the local sales tax by 0.1% to help address behavioral health problems. And that was passed in December of 2012, just before I took office in January. So it was the previous commission who did that. And it was at the request of a citizens mental health advisory committee that was advising the department and had worked on the issue and had made a recommendation that those dollars, which amounted in those days, I think, to right around $1 million. It's more than that now. But their recommendation was that those dollars be spent 3 ways. One was to address the issues for youth, both in prevention and trying to deal with kids who are having those kinds of problems. The other third would go towards subsidizing the operations of drug court, which is having some success in helping people get rid of their addiction, or at least manage their addiction. And then the other third was to provide mental health and substance abuse treatment for the uninsured. So that was the understanding when it was passed, that it would be spent on those 3. And I think probably the first year we were able to do that. And then, surprise, Congress passed a new healthcare program that basically eliminated the uninsured. I mean, the other option was pretty much there for everyone. And so all of a sudden that 1/3 was available for other things. As time went on, we discovered that there was a significant need for mental health treatment in a number of different ways with the jail. And I know I've mentioned before that you get commissioners from different counties together and almost always their conversation will acknowledge the fact that the largest unlicensed mental health facility is the county jail. And that's gotten worse and worse and worse. And so we began shifting the use of this money towards the jail. And I think if I remember the chart correctly, it's a little over 50% of those dollars now go for addressing the issue at the jail. What are some of the things that we use it for at the jail? Because they're pretty good programs.
Yep, so there's a couple of positions that deal with the inmates who are incarcerated that have pretty significant behavioral health issues. It has supported, it's also supported a medication-assisted treatment costs as well. I'm going to hand this out really quick. I wasn't sure what the topic of discussion would be for tonight, but we brought sort of an overview of what the funds, thank you, Carol. What the funds have gone towards. It's two-sided. So one side shows 2022 and the other side shows what is budgeted for 2023.
So then to understand it correctly, the board is going to have to later, not today, but later deal with to renew this.
The Board of County Commissioners will decide whether to continue the tax. Mhm.
So one of the compromises, I guess, the previous commission made established a sunset that the tax would expire in so many years. And I can't remember the number of years. When we got to that point, the programs were working so well. It was like, don't upset the apple cart. Things are going along really well. The dollars are being well spent to address these various programs. And so we extended it again. One of the reasons I was in favor of a sunset was I've always felt that the voters ought to have an opportunity to vote on this tax increase, but I haven't been able to get support from my colleagues yet to put it to a vote, because I still think something like the sales tax, we do the sales tax vote for a lot of different programs. So that was just my particular thing. So we've continued to have these sunset clauses, and it is coming up at the end of 2024. So we have to let the Department of Revenue up in Olympia know if it's going to sunset or if we're going to continue it. And it's like a 3-month lead time for them to make any adjustments if there's a change.
Yeah.
So just to keep those in mind. And a recommendation from this board to the Board of Commissioners is certainly appropriate because it deals a lot with, public health.
Thank you
issues.
for the explanation. That it's new to me. Please.
Hello, I'd just like to offer some additional information about this particular tax. I worked for Cowles County Health and Human Services at the time that this was deliberated on and passed. And this hearing room was actually full of all sorts of people in the community that are passionate about this topic. People who provide substance use disorder treatment, people who provide mental health services, medical professionals, I believe representatives from the court system attended. And there was very strong community support for this tax. Maybe not a full vote of the people as Mr. Weber would love to see, but very strong representation from a lot of people in the community that are knowledgeable about our behavioral health challenges in Cowlitz County. When I was doing research on this particular tax, it's an interesting law because the legislature essentially delegates authority to each county to determine whether they're going to adopt this tax or not for behavioral health services. And there are different ways that the county can choose to establish the tax, and our county opted to vote by the commissioners and move forward. Our county was pretty unique in that we didn't just right out of the gate give all of the money to the court system. That is what many other counties in Washington state that have this type of tax end up doing, is a lot of the money goes directly to the county itself. So it was pretty encouraging to see at the time the county was interested in using this tax to actually increase services for behavioral health across the county, not just requiring you to first have a prison or jail sentence before you get access to those mental health services. So at the time, I believe the county RFP'd out looking for proposals for that work. And there were a number of community agencies that operated under that tax and through those RFPs to deliver services. I think that as the Board of Commission changed, my just sort of observation as a citizen watching this tax and how it was used over time is it seems like the fund started just accumulating dollars. It was not being expended. So I don't know exactly what the cause of that was, but the fund built up to a point where it had probably 4 times the annual collection amount in it. And so it sounds like in current practice, almost all of the funds have been shifted over to the county side. And now our county is similar to lots of other counties with a tax like this, where we're it's probably not technically supplanting, but I know that there was a term in the law that was trying to prevent counties from just padding their own pockets and using all of those tax dollars for their own purposes. So as you know, the Board of Health looks at this and makes recommendations to the county commissioners, I think going back and considering that initial intent to provide additional behavioral health services to the community as a whole and making these funds available for agencies that provide those services in the community would be something I would love to see considered by our county is maybe not holding on so tightly for the county's purposes, but looking at how that tax fund can be used to address behavioral health needs in our community. I just wanted to share that background. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We've, since 2013, this tax has raised almost $21 million. It funds about 28 bodies. I'm not saying that's FTE. So I'll be, and I asked the question last time, and just that, and I'm sure we'll get it plenty of lead time, because I'm really interested in what the public, as Mike mentioned, what the public thinks of it now, and have we gotten our 21, has they gotten their $21 million worth? You know, those are, I think, questions that legitimately need to be asked and explored. So I look forward to the process, and I look forward to a lot of public input as it comes through.
One thing just to add to that, from one of the papers or spreadsheets I saw, Gina, correct me if I'm wrong, but something like 75% of it is now, or most of it is now going to the courts. Did I understand that correctly?
There is on the 2023 overview, you'll see there's about 43% going to corrections, which is the jail. 36% to therapeutic courts, which includes drug court, mental health court, Hope Court, juvenile drug court. And 5% to the youth services center, juvenile detention.
Yeah, so lots to look on that.
Commissioner Weber actually kind of read my mind. That was my intent, was that I do believe this really needs to go on a ballot. 10 years. I think I spoke on this when it came up last time, but I think it does need to go to a vote of the people. You know, I'm looking at the list, and it's all great stuff, and I'm sure every bit of it's very important. But you know, at this point, I think after a decade, it's time for a vote on it. I mean, no doubt you're going to have a lot of people supporting it when it goes before the commissioners. Kind of like we saw with City of Longview, that I really noticed, it really hit me, was that some of the loudest supporters of the Hope Village and all that now work there, or already worked for that industry. So it's great to have a lot of support show up and talk for it, but when you're getting paid by it, it's kind of hard to you know, be fair about it. So I would just second kind of what Commissioner Weber said was that it absolutely needs to go to a vote of the people. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? I think I'm a little confused. Is there still a large amount of money in a pot that's not being used for what it was intended, is just sitting somewhere?
The funds have built up over time, and originally that happened because, as Commissioner Weber mentioned this in the beginning, the funds were sort of set aside for different projects. So there was the idea at the time was a third was set aside for child and youth prevention, a third was set aside for therapeutic courts, and a third was set aside for uninsured services in the community. And because of the changes that happened shortly after the tax was enacted with health insurance, many more people in the community were covered by health insurance. So that uninsured bucket,
Right.
if you will, built up over time. So there is,
So we can't shift it? We can't shift it to another program
yes,
within the
yes,
pie? Okay.
yes, that was sort of,
Shift it back to the taxpayer. Maybe we can shift it back to
Well,
the
I'm thinking maybe
taxpayer.
they don't have to have a tax
Yeah.
renewed for a while
Yeah.
until they use up what they've got.
yeah, the buckets of funding were a recommendation that the board followed at that time. So
Mm.
it can change. That's not in RCW anywhere.
Oh, okay.
So one of the interesting dilemmas that you have is if you're spending down an ending fund balance, you have to be careful what you spend it on because the
Mm.
expectation is it'll be an ongoing
Be
program.
continued, yeah.
And especially if you have an ending fund, that's, that's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
That is a dilemma. But on the other hand, we're not in the banking business. Sorry, Rick. If you collect taxes, you'd be using the taxes
Yeah.
for
But
appropriate purposes.
couldn't we put a pause on it for a year or two until we spend it down some?
I think we should let it go to the
That's the whole
voters.
thing. That's why I'm saying, let's
Yeah.
have plenty of lead time. We have decisions to make on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's something that the voters would be interested in. I know just my little group of some of the old guys that I know who are on fixed incomes have told me no more taxes. They are struggling. These guys are struggling. He's 70 years old. He's had a house. He worked really hard for it. And with inflation and the taxes and the taxes and the taxes, I really feel sorry for this guy. And it's not just him, it's a lot of people in that thing. So, yeah, I think it should be up to the people. Please,
Sure. Well, pretty much said everything I was gonna say, you know.
Sorry.
I don't know if you guys got the power to just vote it away. Can you? Can you just like? I don't see why this would have to go before the voters. I look at these programs here and therapeutic courts. Yeah, we've heard reports from like the drug court and stuff. They haven't ever helped anybody. And there's millions of dollars gone into that thing alone. So why don't you
Well-
guys just make the motion and just end this now? Why
No,
put
I
it-
disagree on drug courts. I've heard a lot of really positive things from addicts that have gone through drug court. Are you saying not funding drug court or?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Well, I-
Eliminate drug court. It's a waste of time and money.
Well, but I would think that there's another opinion about that, Tim.
Well, there may be,
Mine.
but I don't believe you were at the meeting when they were given the report about how many people they've helped and whatnot.
Well, I've just
and,
had people tell me that we're addicts, that are now
Well-
not addicts because of drug court. So,
I
I
kind of
mean,
doubt
over the
that.
years, but it's an
I
opinion.
think they're telling you stuff.
and at the same time, I would say too, that meeting some of the people in the MAT program, there was a lot of bragging going on about how much money they
Yes.
make.
They do make.
Flat out told me that, and that seems kind of weird,
Yep,
a
that's
little
true.
strange.
That's not
Yes,
drug court.
please. Another from the public?
So just on average, roughly $2.1 million a year come into this program?
It's gone up over time. So if we look at 2022, about 3.1 million in revenue came in. 2021, about 2.8 million, 2020, 2.4, 2019, 2.2. So it's
So it's
has
gradually
creeped
been
up. over
creeping
time.
up. And the last year was how much? 3.2?
1 million. Mhm.
And your budget is just below that. Okay. I'm playing Johnny Ketchup, so there's a lot of information there that I need to go through. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And that, it was good just to kind of get our feet wet on this topic here, so we kind of understand how it works. And we'll
So-
definitely be talking about it again.
So, Mr. Chairman, there was a question about why can't this board go ahead and cancel the tax? This board, the Board of Health, does not have taxing authority. That's got to be the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah.
Slight
so
difference, but.
it would be, this board could vote to recommend to the commissioners to end it. And so that's something we'll have to think about and talk.
Good evening. I like that thought. I was just wondering how do we measure the success of the therapeutic courts? I mean, if I'm a voter, I might want to know that, is there somewhere I can look, or is there somebody I can talk to? Because if it's really not a success and we're spending this kind of money on it, then, people should know. If it is working, we should know that too. So is there a way to find out how successful it is? Or
That's an excellent question. Is there a way we can, maybe HHS has the information of, I don't know, drug addicts over time?
There we go. We don't keep the data on the therapeutic court programs. With the 1/10 funds a portion of the program. So we would invite drug court in, or those specific therapeutic court programs to talk about that.
So the
That-
county
that's good.
doesn't keep the data, but the different agencies do. Is that correct?
Specific to drug court, the drug court program keeps that data. So that is the county. But if you're asking about,
Some of the other
broad
programs?
services overall, we have limited information at HHS because none of those entities report to us. We have
Okay.
a very sliver amount.
So the therapeutic courts are operated by the Superior Court.
Mhm.
So everything has to go through separately elected officials to even get an invite. I'm sure they'd be willing to come and give you an update on, based on the testing that they do. And a lot of it has to do with graduation rates. So how many people complete their programs? And another measurement is how many stay off the drugs. And that's a little bit more of a difficult thing because people move and you lose track of where they are, but they do the best they can in looking at success rates on that. But we get that periodically, but it's been a couple of years, I think. So I think it is very appropriate for us to ask for that to be, on our agenda, one of our meetings.
Yeah.
So-
thank you.
Okay, so I can tell you that that information was presented here to the Board of County Commissioners. Whoever gives the report came in here, and this was specifically about drug court.
Mhm.
And by their own measurement, they had 2 people that they actually found that they cleared in all the years. And I know you were here, Dennis Ott was here, because I was sitting by it, Dennis, and we sat there and calculated it out, and it's like, these 2 people cost us like $4 million. It's not the exact number right now, but it was high. It was like that. And so it's like, you can pretty much tell that this drug court is like not doing anything, and we're spending a lot of money on it. And besides the fact that drugs are now not even, they're legal. You don't even have to, why have a drug court if the drugs are legal, right? Doesn't it make no sense at all to spend millions of dollars on this stuff for something that's not even illegal? I don't even think they do anything at drug court. Do they even have like a meeting over there ever? It's funny, I used to teach at the school that was in that building. And so drug court would be going on, and I was working in another office there, and it was like, they were busy back then. And so I know the place. I drive by there all the time, and it's like, there's never anybody there, never.
Yeah. Well, it is a drug court. So the court meets in the courtrooms. The judges preside, and they, so it's not all in the office where they're doing the referrals and the.
Well, it says the drug court
clients.
right there, and
Well,
they
it's
have
the
the
name of the
people showing
office,
up
yeah.
there to do all their stuff. I'm just
So all
saying,
the more reason.
I'm
we
just
should get-
saying,
all the
my
more
main
reason-
point was,
all
I
the more
just wanted,
reason-
okay, go ahead, Grant,
All the
I'm
more
sorry.
reason we should have them come and share with us. Yeah.
They did. and they aren't doing anything.
Well, I think
So-
they did that in the middle of the pandemic when they were having a hard time getting anybody to show. So you're right, but you know, they're back.
Okay, well, good.
Was that in the middle of the pandemic? Seriously? Okay.
No,
well,
we
that
were
would-
meeting in here and we weren't wearing masks.
No, I mean the drug court, they shut everything down during that time.
Well, potentially, but we were still funding them. They were, these
Well-
guys were still sending them money.
Yeah, I think it's a good reason to
Put that
bring,
in program.
bring
all of this.
bring them in.
Let's end the tax. Put it on the agenda for Tuesday and then I'll come and bring a sign. Stop the tax.
Thank you very much for that. Any further comments, questions? Well, if nobody has any objections, yep.
What's the next step in terms of the family health tax? I mean, do we get some additional information from staff? Do we get input on what data they may or may not have collected about the success of their programs, or what's the next step?
I think when the staff will go back and set, when they're ready to talk about it again, and we should combine it with bringing a drug court person to come in and talk about it. Is that, can you liaison with them?
I can reach out to drug court and see if they can come and share information.
Yeah,
I guess, speaking for myself personally, there's a handful of projects within the county that have received a fair number of dollars. So it would seem like the focus has been on drug court, but there's a bunch of other programs. And so I would be interested in knowing, because I feel confident that they collect some kind of data for all of them to come and report out, not just drug court, but that's just my thoughts.
You want the current programs or the ones that were ended in June of last year?
Are they a whole different pile?
This last group are over with. We don't do those anymore.
No, I guess the current ones
Okay.
that we funded for in 2022.
And the co-responder project that might be still a little premature just because it's
Early.
just went into effect. I
Yeah.
don't think they've done it even a year. So, but yeah, it's legitimate to be asking those questions.
another person would like to comment?
I would think it'd be appropriate for anybody on this program who is a ongoing recipient of funds from it to come and give a report on the success of their program, regardless of its therapeutic court or corrections program or youth services, whoever it is. If they have been collecting funds and they're planning on collecting funds this next year, if it's going to be ongoing, I would think any and all of them should be expected to give you some type of feedback to, especially for public benefit, to justify why they're getting the money.
That's a good point.
I agree.
So if any further discussion? Well, it's getting late, so let's call this.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
We've got miscellaneous yet.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I do just want to inform the board that we have been getting information, we've been getting information on a lawsuit settlement against opioid manufacturers that have amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars that will eventually make their way to Cowlitz County. And we have to be part of a whole system, using the projects for certain specified activities, best practices types of things. So we'll be getting you more information about how that settlement is coming down towards us, but additional resources for, behavioral health issues that the county will have to spend. And so again, we can give you more at our next meeting. So
What would you call that as a topic?
opioids lawsuit settlement.
It's just in the point of doing paperwork right now, right?
Right.
And I think, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which commissioner you are, it falls on the chairman's head.
Yeah, I found out I had to actually apply for it. Well, I'm too.
Well, income to the county, it's not a tax there, so sounds okay.
Well, it's only because
They didn't grow
people
that.
spend a lot of money buying opioids when it was
Yeah.
supposed to be
They didn't
the
grow those funds on a
preferred
unicorn
treatment.
tree.
Any further discussion? Oh,
Is the board gonna take citizens' comment as part of your workshop, or is this only Board of Health tonight, or?
Yeah, the next item is public.
yeah, well, it's already been ongoing, but go ahead and continue if you'd like more comment.
Yes, and I'm sorry, my comment is not for the Board of Health, it's for the Board of County Commissioners.
I'd
oh.
wait till one of their meetings then,
Well, unless you shape it in the form of
because we don't have all the commissioners here.
Board of
either.
Health.
What, I mean, this meeting time was supposed to be a county commissioner workshop that the Board of Health was put in place, and
point.
it was listed on the agenda that there would be public comment.
Sure. Do I take over the gavel then? No, I already have it. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, so if you were gonna finish your Board of Health meeting, and I don't know what, so
This is our first time, so we're figuring it out.
I'm throwing a wrench in it, I'm sorry.
Is your comment towards one of the items that we discussed?
No, it's towards a separate item, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'd probably like to leave that for a different meeting then, especially if it's for the commissioners.
Well,
Or
this
you
was
want
supposed to
to
be our
adjourn-
workshop too.
You
so-
want.
Chairman.
Board of Health and then just start the commissioners?
Gonna stop the meeting and stop the recording, then we'll start over with
Yeah,
the
with the
commissioner meeting.
commissioners.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, okay, so on that.
Thank you very
so-
much.
So
Yeah.
just hold them for a minute, and thank you for that, and then we'll adjourn the meeting now at.
Wait, can I say something?
Yep.
I would like to suggest that we look at TikTok, banning it from all county employees' use on county media sites or their phones. Lewis County has done that, and I'm very proud of that. I was raised in Lewis County, and I think they did a very smart thing, being a role model for pushing back against TikTok. It's a very disastrous program for children. They just had a recent death, I think, from a water overdose. It was in the paper where they have those challenges and they get the children to do these ridiculous things that can be harmful and life-threatening. So I just wanted to discuss that with the board tonight, just to throw it out.
That's a good point.
From county phones or?
Just from county,
Declaring TikTok a public health hazard?
yes, it's a threat.
Could
And
be.
so I'm not being facetious, I'm serious about this. They're actually talking about at the federal level, I think, banning TikTok.
It would seem like getting IT involved.
Hmm?
It would seem like getting the IT department involved with that conversation would make sense.
Hey, it does seem like guys probably understand the talk going about that. It's been in the news, and the reason they want to ban TikTok is that the Chinese. Well, didn't you make it?
Official, if you're gonna, you're in a public meeting, you gotta make it recordable.
Other rules. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, I just want to just fill you in is that from what I've seen in the news is the TikTok ban is based around the fact that it's a Chinese-run company and they're tracking everything you do. And that's the reason government agencies are wanting to ban TikTok. The kid thing is bad enough.
I want to
But
ban
the
it.
fact is the
health.
gosh dang Chinese are freaking spying on all our stuff all the time, and they're gonna know everything we're doing here in Cowlitz County.
It's true.
Oh, man, it's be nothing but trouble, right?
Thank you, Tim.
Thought I was done, sorry. Yeah, I would just say that there's me personally, there's no way I would support that being a declared a health emergency. I think that's exactly the kind of problem we run into with a lot of things declared health emergencies. So I really don't want to see health emergencies branch out to apps. Sorry, Lindy. Thank you.
It's okay. My
It's definitely a health concern because I've heard of these challenges and they have hurt a lot of people. But that's up for the commissioners to ban. So without any objection, now I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 6:44.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
And then do